Hi, I'm Chris Moreland, and I'm an instructor with Sage Truck Driver Schools located in Dallas, Texas. I've helped hundreds of students successfully pass their CDL exam at the DMV. In this video, I'll walk you through the pre-trip inspection step by step, and if you follow along, you too will be prepared to pass your CDL inspection. This is the new modernized version of the CDL inspection test.
As you're doing your pre-trip, be sure to follow the checklist. You're allowed to use this checklist at the DMV. Make sure you follow each box and check them off accordingly. Do not skip or do not go out of order. First, we're going to start with the air brakes and continue to go down throughout the entire length of the pre-trip.
Alright, so the first thing we're going to do for the air brakes is we're going to chalk our wheels. Alright, one chalk behind the rear, and one chalk beyond the front of the steer tire. That's all you have to do. Go ahead and get your chalk. Alright, so follow my checklist here. As you can see, the first three things on the checklist are air hydraulic brake check, parking trailer brake check, and service brake check. That's all the air brakes test. So first thing, seatbelt. Start my engine. Press the clutch in. Make sure you're in neutral if you're in the manual or automatic. Alright, the first thing I have to do is I have to build my pressure to governor cutoff, which is in between 120 and 140 psi. Alright, and I can build the pressure faster by stepping on the gas pedal and making the air compressor run faster. We're waiting to hear a sneeze type of sound from the outside. You can build it to about, you don't want to go over 15 RPMs. So I'll keep it right there in the middle in between 10 and 15. Okay, my governor has cut off, and you do want to tell them when it cut off. So my governor cut off at about 125 psi. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the engine off. I'm going to turn the vehicle back on so I can see my gauges. Now I'm going to press in my parking brake and my trailer brake. Okay, take a look at this. We're waiting for our gauges to stabilize. As you can see, the gauges are dropping a little bit because we're losing just a little bit of air, but no big deal. So now that it's stabilized, the needle's not moving anymore, and also the hissing from these knobs has stopped. If your knobs kept on hissing or making a sound, that'll be an indication that you already have an air leak right off the bat. Alright, so now what we're gonna do is push our foot on the brake, and we should not lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute. Now again, after you press your foot on the brake, make sure they stabilize again. So we lost a little bit of air because we pressed on the brake, but also it's not moving anymore. Now we can start our timer for 60 seconds, and we shouldn't lose more than 4 psi. Very important, that small detail. So you can use your phone or you can use your watch, but you have to time it yourself. So we're gonna go ahead and use my watch here. Remember to time it after you press your foot on the brake and watch it stabilize. That's a new detail that they just added about a month ago. Also, make sure you press your foot on the brake the entire time and do not let it go. Okay. So I did not lose more than 4 psi. Always say what you're going to do and then tell them what happened after you did it. Alright, so now I need to test my low air warning light and sound, and that should come on at or before 55 psi. The way we say it like that is because technically it could come on at 56, 58, 60, but it shouldn't come on below 55. So at or before 55 psi is when your low air warning should come on. So I'm gonna keep pressing my brake down to release air. My gauges. One system. All right. My primary and my secondary. Low air warning, light and sound came on at about 55 psi. Okay. My next step is I want these emergency valves to pop out so my emergency brakes come on in between 20 and 45 psi. So I'm still gonna pump my brakes down until my emergency valves pop out. All right, so my emergency valves popped out at about 25 psi. Make sure they both pop out and you cannot pull them out. All right, so that's it for that. I'm gonna start my engine now so I can take my chocks out. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure on the wheel, so I'm gonna start the engine and then turn my steering wheel so I can release the chocks and then turn the truck back off. Okay, I've removed my chocks. I just put them to the side and put my seatbelt back on. Now, again, I need to build my pressure back up to governor cutoff, which is in between 120 and 140 psi. During this time, some people like to do their in-cab inspection, but I really like to focus on that checklist. That way I don't miss anything. As your governor is building up, some people have a tendency to try to rush through and name all the things in the in-cab, and you might miss something. So I prefer to just focus on one thing at a time. Okay, there is my governor cutoff, and it cut off at about 125 psi. All right. So the next test we're gonna do is called the tug test. So first, I'm gonna test to make sure my trailer brakes are working properly. To do that, you press in your parking brake. So what I'm doing is I'm releasing the brakes on my tractor so I can pull against the trailer to make sure the trailer brakes work. So if you have an automatic, you just put it in drive and tug against the trailer. We have a manual, so I'm putting it in first gear. Push in. Release the clutch, and you'll feel the tractor tugging on the trailer, and the trailer should not move. All right, so my trailer did not move, which means my trailer brakes are working properly. Now I'm gonna do the tug test on the tractor. So release the tractor brakes, push in the trailer brakes. So my trailer brakes are free, my tractor brakes are locked up, and I'm gonna do a tug test on that. If you're in an automatic, be sure, if you're in drive, put it in neutral, and then put it in drive again, because otherwise it'll just rev in neutral. Here, we're gonna tug on it. All right, you feel the chassis twisting, and my tractor brakes are working properly, did not move. The last test of the air brake test is the service brake test. So we're gonna put it in drive or put it in gear. We need to drive about 5 miles an hour, step on the service brakes, and make sure my steering wheel did not turn to the left or the right, because that can indicate a braking issue. So, pull forward, step on the service brakes. Okay. Then I just say my service brakes are working properly, they stopped the truck, and my steering wheel did not turn from the left or the right. Go ahead and release your brakes. Now, we can start our in-cab inspection. Again, going through the checklist, which you are allowed to use at the DMV. We're going to start with lighting indicators. Okay, so that's all the indicators on the dashboard, or the ones I'm about to describe. So, start with the left turn indicator, that's working properly. My right turn indicator, that's working properly. my four-way flasher indicators are working properly. My high beam indicator is working properly. And then my DEF indicator is working properly, and I have the proper amount of def in it. Okay. Also, you want to make sure you mention that your ABS light came on and turned off. Also, you want to mention that your ABS light on the trailer turned on and turned off, but you can't see it right now. Okay. Next is emergency equipment. My emergency equipment, we're going to talk about the fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking. It's fully charged, and the pin is in place. Then we're going to talk about our emergency triangles. Our emergency triangles are properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're the proper color, red and orange. Then we also want to mention that we have our 6 spare fuses for emergencies in case you get a short circuit or one of your fuses blows out. So that's all for emergency equipment. Now onto the checklist. Windshield and traffic monitoring devices. So I'm starting my windshield. My windshield is properly mounted and secured. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no leaks. It is clean. And there are no obstructions. Right? Now my traffic monitoring devices are my mirrors. We call them traffic monitoring devices because some trucks have cameras, right? But we have mirrors. So I want to say all of my mirrors, my hood mirrors, and my side mirrors, or my rear view mirrors as they call them, they're all properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're clean, and there's no obstructions, and they're properly adjusted to me, the driver. Now down to wipers and washers. So run your wipers. My windshield wipers are properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're tight against the windshield. And my windshield wiper fluid is working properly. Next, we're going to talk about the heater and defroster. So you want to turn here to the defrost and heat, turn it on heat. And you just want to say my defroster is working properly, and then my heater is working properly. Last thing, my horn working properly, my city horn, and then my air horn is working properly. Right. And that concludes the air brakes and in-cab inspection. One important thing to talk about though is at any point on this test here, if you realize that you did something wrong during your air brakes test, you can start over. Okay, there's a time limit. I believe it's about 2 hours at the DMV, which is what they give you. So, and that's to do the whole test. That's to do the air brakes, the pre-trip, the maneuvers, and the driving. So, when you start over, you have to start over the right way. You have to turn your truck back off, take your air pressure back out, and start with building your air pressure to governor cutoff, and then start in the air brakes order from that point. Okay, you can always start over. It's not the end. Some things that people do is they forget to push their valves in, and the whole time they're pressing the brakes and doing all that, or they forget to turn the truck back on, and their gauges aren't on the whole time. So once you realize that, again, you can start over. All right. Next we're gonna do all external lights. On the all external lights, you want to ask the examiner if they can step out and assist you with checking all the external lights outside of the vehicle. So you want to turn the truck off to know your lights on. So we'll go ahead and turn the truck back on without the engine running. And you want to have them check your low beams, your high beams, your left turn, your right turn, your four-way. You want to check your clearance lights, and then you want to check your left turn four ways on the trailer on both sides, and also your left turn, right turn, four ways, and brake lights at the rear of the trailer. Okay? And each thing you have to yell at them loud enough so they can hear you, because if they don't hear you, they won't give you credit for the lights. All right? So that's how you check the external lights. And that concludes the in-cab inspection and an external lights check. Next, we'll come on out and we'll start the outside pre-trip. Okay, so as I start the pre-trip, I'm going to start at the front of the vehicle. But mind you, for every part I'm talking about, you want to say it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. Okay, so every time we're talking about anything that's hard metal or plastic, I want to say it's not cracked, bent, or broken. Anything that's rubber, you want to say there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. The reason I do this is because there's a lot of detail on each parts, so you can knock out about 50% of the details with those two phrases right there. It's instead of being real specific on each part. Okay, so we're gonna start with the lenses. We're just gonna talk about our lens covers now. So my lens covers are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're clean. Right, we already talked about the clearance lights. Now I'm gonna look under my vehicle. I don't see anything dripping or nothing hanging under the vehicle. Okay. And also, my vehicle is not leaning to the left or the right, because that would indicate underinflation of tires or suspension issues. I got it. So next up, we're going with fluid levels. Okay. So the easiest way to open the hood is from the side. So on our fluid levels, we have first coolant reservoir. The coolant reservoir is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's filled to the proper level. The cap is on tight, and it's not leaking. All right. Anything with air or fluid, you want to say not leaking. Now the hose coming from it, which is right there, is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and it is not leaking, or excuse me, no abrasions, bumps, or cuts because it's rubber. All right. Now we have our power steering reservoir. The power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's filled to the proper level. I can see through the side glass. The cap is on tight and it's not leaking. The hose coming from the power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secure. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and it is not leaking. All right. Also, my oil dipstick is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's not leaking. Now, you don't have to pull the dipstick out, but you want to tell them to check my oil. I will pull out the dipstick, wipe it clean, put it back in, pull it back out, and make sure it's in between the add and the fill line. Okay, put it back in. All right, so that's it for the fluid levels. Next, we have our fluid and air leaks. So the fluid and air leaks is talking about all of the hoses in the engine area, in the engine bay. We have air hoses here. You have rubber hoses here. So I'm gonna talk about all of them. All of my hoses are properly mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. I don't see any leaks, and I don't hear any leaks. And also, nothing is dripping on my engine or transmission. All right, that's for the fluid and air leaks. Steering system. You got your steering shaft. Steering shaft is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. And there's no excessive play. Then you have your joints right here and right here. The joints are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're properly lubricated. Now you have your steering gearbox, which is right there. The gearbox is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking, and all the nuts and bolts are in place. So, especially on the heavy hardware, you want to mention all the nuts and bolts are in place. So after that, more on the steering system. We got the pitman arm. Look like that. Pitman arm, drag link, control arm, and then the tie rod. All right. They are all properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. And the castle nut and the cotter pins are in place. They call it a castle nut because it looks like a old top of a castle. All right, and there's a cotter pin right there. So again, pitman arm, drag link, control arm, tie rod, all properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken. Castle nuts and cotter pins are in place. Next, you have your tires. The tires are properly mounted and secure. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts on the sidewalls. The tread is evenly worn. The tread depth is no less than 4/32 on the steers and 2/32 on all other tires. The tires are not mismatched, and there's no recap tires. Also, they're properly inflated to 100 psi or manufacturer specifications. Now, to check my tire pressure, I will use a pressure gauge. So since we're here, we're going to talk about our valve stem. The valve stem is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's not leaking, and the cap is on tight. All right, you can actually put air through that cap too, by the way. Next up is the rims. Before we get to the rim, I'm gonna say there's no obstructions in between my rim and my tire. All right. Now the rim is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and there's no illegal welds. There's no oblong holes or elongated studs. Lug nuts, they're properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're all there. They're all tight. There's no rust trails running down from the lug nuts, and there's no shiny spots on the thread that indicate looseness. Okay, now we're going to talk about our springs, mounts, airbags, and shocks. So we don't have airbags right here because airbags, if we had airbags, it would be air ride suspension, but we have a shock absorber instead. All right, so these are the mounts. You have one here and one back there, and this is your leaf spring right here. All right, so my leaf spring and mounts are properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing any nuts and bolts. Then my shock absorber is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it is not leaking. All right. All right, next we got our brake lines or hoses and leaks. So that's our brake line right there. Our brake line is properly mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. It's not leaking, and it's secure on both sides, not missing any hardware. Brake contaminants. All you do is look inside at the brake drum, and you want to say there's no contaminants such as grease or oil inside the brake drum and the brake pad. Now we're onto the side of the vehicle, lenses and reflectors. So we have one here. We have a lens and reflector on the top of the trailer, and then we also have one down there in the middle, but we'll talk about that later when we walk that way. Okay. So this is side marker, signal light, four-way flasher, reflector. It's properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's the proper color amber. The flash slide up there, properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and the proper color amber. Traffic monitoring devices. These are mirrors. Some trucks have cameras. If you have a camera on your truck, you talk about your camera, but we have mirrors. So our mirrors are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any hardware, and the mirror itself is clean, and there's no obstructions. Next, we have our batteries. So our batteries are properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. Now, you don't have to take the cover off if it's not easily accessible. Some trucks have kind of a staircase battery cover. You do not have to take that off to talk about your batteries. You don't have to take this off either. But just since we're here, I'm gonna open it up a little bit just so you can see inside. All right, so the batteries are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're not leaking because they have acid. All right, now we got our, talk about your cables. The cables are securely mounted. There's no exposed wires. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. They're connected tight to the terminals, and then there's no excessive corrosion. That's it. Next, we talk about our def tank. Our def tank is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking. The cap is on tight, and the hose coming from the def tank is no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and it's not leaking. All right. Same at the fuel tank, exact same way. The fuel tank is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking, the cap is on tight, and the hose coming from it, there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and it's not leaking. Next is the frame. So our frame, we have our tractor frame, and then we have cross members, one here and then one here. All right, so the frame and the cross members are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. No illegal welds and no holes that aren't supposed to be there. All right, also we have a trailer frame right here. This is the trailer frame. All right, so our trailer frame is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. And the cross members, they are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. And there are no holes in the cargo floor. We have our air and electric lines. Our air lines are properly mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. They're not leaking, and they're locked in place. The electric line is properly mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts. No exposed wires, and it is locked in place. They're both locked in place on both sides. Okay. Now, none of the air lines or the electric lines are tangled up or dragging on the frame. You especially don't want them to get caught and things like this. When you're making a turn, they can get hooked down there, turn, and they'll rip your air lines off like that. So you don't want that. Next, we're going to talk about the coupling system area. So on the checklist, you have fifth wheel, skid plate, pencil hook, tow hitch, drawbar, tongue, ring. We don't talk about the drawbar, tongue, ring, coupler, and panel hook. Okay. So I'm also gonna go from top to bottom. So we're gonna talk about the apron first. So the apron, grab this. The apron is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. Then we got our fifth wheel right here. Our fifth wheel skid plate is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. And there is no gap between the fifth wheel and the apron. Also, the fifth wheel is properly lubricated or has grease on it. All right, now right here, this is our fifth wheel release handle. That's what releases your locking jaws. So the fifth wheel release handle is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's locked in place. This is a fifth wheel slide rail. This fifth wheel slide rail can move. It is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it is locked in place. This is your platform. This one holds the whole fifth wheel together. So the fifth wheel platform is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's not missing any nuts and bolts. So that's it. So I've covered some of the locking safety devices, and I just go in order from top to bottom there. Now all we have to do is talk about the kingpin and the locking jaw. So first we got our kingpin. Our kingpin right there on the top, you can see the top of it. It is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's not worn. And then the locking jaws wrapped under it are properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're locked tight around the kingpin and no excessive play. All right. Now while we're down here, go ahead and talk about my landing gear. My landing gear and support frame. So my landing gear and support frame are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. The feet are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and they are fully raised off of the ground. You got your crank handle right here. It is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's in the stowed position. And then you have proper clearance from your landing gear to your tractor frame for turns. All right, next up we have our reflective tape. It is properly mounted, secure, not damaged, not torn, and it covers about 50% of the vehicle. Now we're here with our marker light, turn signal, forward flasher, reflector. It is properly mounted and secure. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and then is the proper color, amber. So here we have a tandem release lever. This will move your tandems if you pull it. So my tandem release lever or handle and pin are properly mounted and secure. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're in the lock position. All right. So now we've covered all of the locking safety devices. So when you look at locking safety devices on the checklist, it's talking about the locking jaw, the release handle, the tandem release arm, and the fifth wheel sliding rail. So by doing it in order that way, you've covered everything pretty smoothly, and it flows better.
At this point, if your trailer has an automatic tire inflation system, or ATIS, which is that yellow line you can see running from the hub to the valve stem, you have to talk about it. If you don't have it, there's no need to talk about it. So you would say, my ATIS or automatic tire inflation system is properly mounted and secured, there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and it's not leaking.
Now here we have our ABS light. It is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It is off, and it's the proper color, yellow. Right here we have a marker light. It is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's the proper color, red. Go on to the rear. Now we have our marker lights, turn signals, four-way flashers, and reflectors. We can group those all together. And brake lights. They are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're the proper color, red. My clearance lights are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and they're the proper color, red. And then we have our DOT tape, reflective tape in the back, and it is covering 100% in the rear. It's not torn, cut, or damaged. All right, so that'll conclude the new modernized pre-trip vehicle inspection. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and share with others. Leave a comment if you have any questions. If you're interested in Sage Truck Driving School, go ahead and give us a call. We're out here in Dallas, Texas. Also, be on the lookout for more videos I might post. I might post a new video on the maneuvers and possibly road tests, things like that, to keep everybody up to speed. All right, thanks for watching.